Good evening, everyone. It's Necro Thursday, and that means it's time for the Necromaniacs horror podcast. How's it going, Jeff?
It's going all right, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I was down in Richmond, Virginia, yesterday, completing the work on some tattoo stuff that I have going on. So,
Oh,
it was
nice.
kind of a long day, but it was nice to get out of town.
Yeah, always fun to have a long day getting tattooed.
Getting stabbed by tiny needles for 6 hours.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's somehow fun.
Yeah. But
Nice.
yeah, other than that, just going about business here.
Yeah, same here. Well, not the tattoo part, but yeah, just sort of going through life. Working, sleeping, not doing much, the usual.
Before we get going, let's give a shout out to everyone, the rest of the crew. So if you guys are listening to this, you probably are in the know already, but we are a member of a gang of podcast creators at war with mediocrity. And let me tell you, Jeff, there's a lot of mediocrity out there, as you know.
There sure
So
is.
our mission statement is to eradicate that, to drive this mediocrity into hiding. So, of course, I'm referring to the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. And kicking things off on every other Monday, we've got Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666. Up next in the rotation on Tuesday is Into the Necrosphere, brought to you by Jackie Smith. And that's the greatest extreme music metal podcast in the land. On Wednesday, we've got Everything Went Black, which is my long-running show where you get pretty much anything's on the table. From week to week. It's different, and sometimes you don't even get an episode on Wednesday. So,
Yeah.
but I try to minimize those weeks. Um, Wednesday is also the day that Iblis Manifestations comes at you, and that's featuring Cheyenne of the great band Trivax. So Wednesdays and Thursdays, you get a double shot of content. On Thursday, Necro Thursday, we come back with Necromaniacs horror podcast with myself, Jeff Kashid, and Mike Scandato, and day one of Soul Knocks by Carl Hakara. Friday, Mike's brother John Draper weighs in with Spitball Media, a basic, I would say, they cover a lot of ground. More of like comics, movies. Sometimes we cross over with the horror stuff, but they're more of like a cultural sort of show. Let's put it that way.
Hmm.
Saturday is a day off. Sunday is day two of Soul Knocks, brought to you by Carl Hakara. And Carl and I, as I mentioned in the past episodes, are working on Darkness Weaves, which is our exploration of the work of Carl Edward Wagner, a relatively obscure horror, weird fiction, and dark fantasy writer. And right now we are in the midst of doing the Kane short stories, which is probably his most well-known character. If you're a fan of Conan or Elric or any of that kind of stuff, or even like Game of Thrones or any kind of epic fantasy, definitely check this out. Be forewarned, the Kane short stories are way more horror themed. So there's like definitely swords and magic and all that sort of stuff, but there's a lot of horror in there too. So you might find a werewolf, a vampire, demons, stuff like that. So yeah, really cool stuff. And that's the whole shebang, man. We got you covered pretty much every day of the week.
Amazing. Great to be a part of it.
Have you been checking anything out that's notable
Yeah,
these past weeks?
I've been going back to the 90s a lot the last few weeks and checking out some things. First off, I rewatched the 1994 Crow with Brandon
Oh,
Lee because there's a remake that came out this weekend, and I haven't seen it. I can't speak to the quality, but from what I'm seeing, it's not very good. Yeah, I thought I'd go back to the original. It's been a long, long time since I saw it, and I can see why the younger me loved this movie so much. I still liked it, but you kind of see it through a different lens. 30 something years later.
Yeah, it's that's a great movie. I really enjoy it. I Tina and I went to go see it on the 30th anniversary on the big screen, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. That's like literally one of her top five favorite movies, and it was really cool. We went. It was like a date night, a midweek date night, which is a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, and it's still interesting too because Brandon Lee unfortunately was killed on the set of the movie, and he wasn't finished filming his parts, so they had to kind of figure out how to finish the movie. And I just wonder what would have been had he survived. It was a real breakout performance for him, and very, very tragic.
Read the comics,
I never read the comic. No.
dude.
I hear it's great.
Totally recommend it. I don't have all of the original single issues, but I have a collection that came out a number of years ago, and it really is great, man. It's like, it came out like in that late 80s period when independent, you know, comics were sort of on the rise, with like Faust and The Crow, and like all this kind of stuff was all happening. And also there's like, you can look up the James Barr there's like documentary stuff online where he talks about just like his what he was going through on a personal level, that caused him to write that inspired him to write all that stuff. It's like really
Yeah,
interesting stuff. Yeah.
it's really heavy. Yeah, he wrote that from a place of deep grief, and that comes through in the movie too, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
it totally does. And also like the movie really is like the score, it's really, really fucking cool, man. Everything about it is cool.
yeah, that director went. I think it was his first feature length film, and still his best. I mean, after that, he directed Dark City, which I also loved when I was like, 18, 19 years old. And
Oh
he did
yeah.
I Robot with Will Smith. I think he began to fall off somewhere around then, but it was cool. I remember like, oh, this is like, this guy is gonna be like, A-list Hollywood director probably after this. Because I mean, The Crow is so stylish. It's such a simple story, but it's all about how the movie looks and feels. Like that part, like they absolutely nailed.
Yeah, James O'Barr, like I don't think he didn't even do anything after The Crow. I don't think that's the only comics I read by him. So he also kind of just like, did that and then did some other things.
Yeah, and speaking of comics, on HBO Max, Spawn the animated series is streaming, and I went through that for the first time in I don't know how long. I remember when I first moved into the Hydra Head house back in I don't know 97, 98, somewhere around then. Aaron had it on VHS or something, and we watched all those back then, and it was really fun rewatching. You've seen that? You must
Oh
have.
yeah, yeah. I saw it when it was out. I saw it when it came out in the
Yeah.
90s. It was just awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's got some flaws, but it's so cool. It's crazy to me that like there hasn't been a big screen adaptation of Spawn since that movie that came out in '97.
Yeah, they should have that the actual one that exists, I thought was pretty bad. And
Yeah, it
did
was
not
not good.
capture the essence of the comic book at all.
No, it was very cheesy. It was way before they took comic book movies seriously. I think things would be a lot different now. I know there is a new Spawn movie in development, but they've been having one in development for like 20 years, it feels like.
Yeah.
So we'll see. The funny thing about rewatching the cartoon is Todd McFarlane himself does introductions before each
Yep.
episode. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yeah.
Oh man, that it's very it's cringy.
Yeah, it's like that dude should not. It's just one of those guys. Like some of these like creators should only really be created within the medium that they work in. You know, it's
Yeah,
almost
no,
like like Viggo Mortensen being a great actor, but being a mediocre painter. You know what I mean?
yeah. Oh, he's a painter. Oh, all
Yeah.
right, that makes sense.
From what
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand.
I know Todd McFarlane too was like heavily involved with trying to get another Spawn movie off the ground. Like he was going to direct it, and as far as I know, he's never directed before. And I think that might be part of what has stalled the production of a new Spawn movie. It wouldn't surprise me if it was all on him, but what do I know? But yeah, it's a great show. If you have Max, I highly recommend watching it. It was great to see it for nostalgic purposes, but I mean, even if it was the first time seeing it, I would have really enjoyed it. Very dark, neo noirish, really really good stuff.
Maybe
And
I'll check it out again. Yeah,
you
maybe I'll
should,
watch it again. Yeah.
you should. And on a non-horror note, I rewatched Chinatown for the first time in a while. Speaking of neo noir, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what can you say about Chinatown that hasn't been said a million times? It's one of the best movies ever made. It's pretty much perfect.
That is a great movie for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Roman Polanski, fucking Robert Town, and Jack Nicholson. I mean, Robert Evans producing. It doesn't get more classic Hollywood than that. Just a really, really great movie. And if there's for some reason you're listening to this and you haven't seen Chinatown, you got to see it. It's literally one of the best. What about you, man? What have you been checking out?
Actually, I just saw Oddity, which,
Oh,
dude, fucking amazing in my opinion.
yeah, you texted me about that. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
pretty surprised. I heard of it, and but I never really heard like any sort of like buzz or anything about it. It was really good, huh?
Yeah, it's not streaming free anywhere yet, but
Mm.
I've been anticipating this for a while, ever since I heard about it. So I like went out and I'm like, oh, this would be a perfect thing to watch on a Friday night. So I rented it, and the writer director Damian McCarthy, um he's someone that I've been paying attention to, um because he did a film called Caveat, which we covered, which came out in 2020.
Yeah, I remember that movie. It was good.
Yeah. And so I had high expectations for this one, and I really really dug it, man. It's atmospheric, it's very tense, there's like this pervading sense of dread. It's shot really well. um Tina and I watched it, and she actually called the plot way in the beginning, and I was like, oh, okay, let's see. And it played out pretty much the way that she described it. So I got to give her props for that.
Nice.
Um, yeah, dude, we need to. It's a Shutter production, so it'll be on Shutter, I imagine, in the next couple months. We definitely need to cover that one, and it's probably going to be on my year-end list. And I can say that with confidence at this point.
God, yeah, I feel like every month or two, like a movie comes out where I'm like, this is definitely top five. I've said for three different movies, like, oh, this is going to be my movie of the year. No, this is going to be like, there's so much good stuff this year. It's such a stark contrast to last year when we were kind of struggling
Yeah,
with horror.
there's a ton of good stuff this year, and but so far this one in stop motion, I think are probably like right now those are one and two for me.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. We did stop motion a few months back. Really, really liked it. It's going to be tough to narrow it down to six this year.
Yeah, well, a lot of runner-ups on this one.
A lot of runner-ups. Yeah. Great year.
Earlier that same evening, I watched Hellhole by the Addams Family.
Yeah, I've been seeing that pop up all over Instagram. How was it?
I enjoyed it. It was
Um,
different, had a different feel than some of their other stuff, which is good because like I think all their movies have like a different vibe.
mm,
And
yeah.
this one is not a Wonder Wheel Productions. So another company actually, it was there was another production company involved in making the film. So they were the writer, director, stars. John did the film score,
Mm,
but there was another production company that produced the film, and it was
okay.
good.
So
Yeah, it kind of had like a Lovecraftian sort of vibe to it. It was took place in Eastern Europe, um, and had like that isolated, dreadful kind of thing going on. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, I saw the trailer and it looked really. I said, oh, this is up my alley.
Yeah.
We might watch it tonight. We have a couple movies on deck to watch, and that's on the list. Certainly enjoyed their last two movies quite a bit.
They have another film that's actually going to be dropping this fall. That's a Wonder Wheel Productions, which is their production company.
Right.
And so I'm going to have them on Everything Went Black probably next month at some point to discuss this and the new film.
Nice. They're always good guests on your
Oh yeah,
podcast, and they've done Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf podcast.
yeah, they're like solid, cool people, man. I love talking to those guys.
Yeah, it's cool to see a real DIY kind of thing happening, and they crank out movies. They seem to do one a year. It seems they move quick.
Yeah, as John put it, they're the black flag of filmmaking.
Yeah, that's fucking great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then also non-horror. I've been watching Downton Abbey. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't actually. Other than I'll come home and my girlfriend will be watching it. She was really, really into that show, but I have never seen it, despite being told by several people that it's really good.
Well, my fiance Tina put me onto that. We've been watching that and The Crown,
Oh
which
yeah,
um, also a very fine show too. But I'm invested in both of those shows actually.
nice.
Yeah, it's I enjoy that kind of actually I don't really know that much about Britain during that part of history, and
Hmm.
my fiance is like like a bit of a history buff, so she knows a lot about that era. I know more about like Britain's like ancient history, with the
Right.
Romans and all that sort of stuff, but she knows more
Yeah.
about the more modern world than I do.
No, okay. I'll get around to it someday. I'm sure she'll want to rewatch it at some point, and I'll probably end up watching it with her. And it'll be one of those things where I don't want to see it, and then I watch a couple episodes and I'm hooked. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen.
Dude, I'm
I
totally the same way. It's like I was like, we'd be like eating dinner and stuff, and I'm like, I wonder what's going to happen to Mr. Bates, or something like that. It's like it'd be in my mind, like I hope this guy's okay, whatever. I hope he doesn't get caught. So
yeah, yeah. It's fun to discover something that like people have been into for like 10 years, but it's brand new to you. When I eventually watch Game of Thrones, that's probably what's going to happen because I still never seen a single episode of that show.
dude, you have a wealth of material to go through, especially with House of the Dragon coming up, happening. And there's also another spin-off series coming out next year, which looks good. And I'm not as much like I haven't read any of the books. I mean, we in our library we have all the books. Like
Well,
Tina's read some of them. I have not read any of them. And but I will get down to business eventually, probably this winter, to read some of these things. And I'm all in the Game of Thrones world now.
nice. And the books, the show went past the books, from what I understand.
Unknown. I mean, I can only go by what people tell me, and that's my
Mm,
understanding, and there's
yeah.
like there is like a sort of like a world. There's a book that came out that we also have that's about kind of the world building aspect of it, like all the
Mm,
different dragons and the different ages and eras and who's who and all that sort of stuff. So that might be helpful because there is a lot of characters.
yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Do you ever worry about oversaturation? Because you mentioned there's a prequel, there's a spin-off coming. I kind of been like watching what's happened to Star Wars, and you start to see like too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
Initially I felt that way. Because initially I was not into House of the Dragon at first, because like the Game of Thrones world with the different characters and the actors was way different. But I think that's why I don't feel like it can be I don't think it's oversaturated yet because the shows have a different voice. You know what I mean? Like you are watching a very different show with a different feel, but then there's little nuggets in there that connect things. So it's like, you're watching something that's part of the same universe, but there's completely different vibes to the shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. Like the opposite of The Walking Dead and all of its spin-offs, where they're all kind of
Yeah,
different
yeah,
versions of the same thing.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, totally. And it's like
Yeah.
I think it's cool. Like yeah, it is definitely on the cusp of maybe getting oversaturated with this new show. Like if the new show isn't very good, then I might change my tune about that.
Right.
But as of right now, I'm like down with it. And yeah, I've been reading the Prince of Nothing trilogy, which Carl Hakara turned me on to. And in a similar vein, like tons of characters and names and fucking places and stuff. And it's like trying to wade through that too. And the books are like these like 600 pages each too. So but Carl
Madness.
assured me that he's like just go with it, when you get to the end of the book it all makes sense. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But the writing's great with those Prince of Nothing novels.
Awesome. I have that written down. Oh, a little birdie told me you've been watching the RoboCop documentary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was cool. I didn't finish it yet, but it's so far I like it a lot. I love
Yeah,
docs on like old school films like that.
me too. And that's such a deep dive. I mean, it gets every detail. Anything you could want to know about RoboCop is in that documentary.
Yeah, and RoboCop 1 and 2 are great. I love the second one too, actually.
Oh man, I haven't seen the second one in so long. I remember being very, very, very disappointed with it though.
I dug it. It had Frank. I think Frank Miller wrote the script, didn't he?
Yes, he did. There was a writer's strike going on, and Frank Miller was not a member of the Writers Guild, so he could write
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Well, I like Frank Miller from the Dark Knight and Ronin and Daredevil and like all that sort of stuff. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. From what I understand, like they wanted Paul Verhoeven didn't want to come back for the sequel, and they were courting Alex Cox, director of Repo Man, to do RoboCop 2. And that would have been a really interesting movie. Would have loved to have seen what he brought to the RoboCop universe.
yeah, well, Repo Man is like one of my all-time favorite movies. But yeah, that would have been interesting. But yeah, the Verhoeven version, the first film is a classic. It's like Alien. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. And the third one I haven't seen since it came out. I remember it being truly awful. And
I have
the
no memories of the third one.
it's kind of how I feel about the remake too. Like I know I saw it, but nothing about it sticks out in my head at all.
Yeah, it's got that Swedish guy in it. Kind of miscast, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, he's great too. I like him in pretty much everything. But yeah, I agree. It just didn't work. And those are big shoes to fill with Peter Weller. I mean, he's such a presence.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
So we got a voicemail this week. If you guys want to hit us up on the phone, that is, and leave a message, you can hit us on the Necro phone at 908-913-0782. Once again, that's 908-913-0782. And this week we have Alan from Florida.
Hello, fellows. Alan from Florida. I just finished your first Mayhem Down Under episode. A little late because I wanted to watch the movie before I listened to it. Great movie. I'm not extremely happy about myself when I say that, but it was so well done. It really was. I listened to a podcast about that guy a few months back, and fun fact about him that he was like obsessed with that 90s rock band Live. He'd like play throwing copper to pump himself up before he'd torture and kill. I remember wanting to kill after hearing them for the thousandth time on the radio back in the day, so I kind of get it. And I watched Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer after watching Snowtown, and it kind of served as a bit of a palate cleanser. Anyway, I've been watching a lot of Abel Ferrara movies lately, Bad Lieutenant, Miss 45, stuff like that. And finally got around watching Infinity Pool. That was really good. Liked that a lot. The family's DNA seems to run pretty strong. And I ordered 2 of the books you guys suggested, Shadow over Innsmouth and Tetro Grotesca. So I'm really looking forward to those. Those should be in the mail pretty soon. You guys are killing it. I'm about to start the Immaculate episode now, so thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for commenting on Mayhem Down Under. We're going to be doing more of those. And yeah, the Snowtown Murders was definitely the right place to start. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh God, yeah, coming out hot right out of the gate. It doesn't get much more unsettling than that. And yeah, he mentioned like there's a couple details that weren't in the movie, like the killer was really into that band Live, which somehow makes the whole thing even more disturbing. I mean, who the fuck is really into Live?
Dude, I have always hated that band. They were like an MTV thing for a while, like in the 90s. Like they would pop up and I would turn the channel when they came on.
Yeah, yeah, they were like a band that you'd see on like 120 minutes, and you're like, yeah, well, don't like that. And then a few years later, they're this huge mainstream, like #1 multi-platinum selling band. I don't know how that happened.
I don't either, man. It's like I don't even know a single person who has not even like normal people that I know in my life that like that band. So how the hell did they become so huge?
Yeah, it's weird, like yeah, the same thing. I'm like, I don't know anyone who likes this, but obviously someone does. And every once in a while an alternative band will get huge, and you're like, yeah, I get that. I can see why REM was one of the biggest bands in the world at one point. I don't get it with Live at all.
Yeah, REM actually, like their earlier stuff from the IRS Records version of the band, I love all those old records. You know what I mean?
Dude,
like Reckoning and Murmur and all that stuff's great.
I like everything REM did up into and including Out of Time. Everything after that's just I don't know. I kind of got into other things, and REM wasn't cool to me anymore. So, but man, those earlier records are some of my favorites.
I think I might have tapped out with Life's Rich Pageant. That's probably the last one I really dug.
Oh, okay. So before they were a major label multi-platinum band, then.
I think that came out on a major label, didn't it?
Oh, did it? I think Green was like their big major label, or Document. It was one of the. No, it was Green. I think that was like their big, we have arrived moment. And that was like 88, 89, something like that. Document
was pretty good. I remember getting Document and being like pretty, kind of half into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But all right. So Life's Rich Pageant was still on IRS Records. So yeah, it was not on a major label. And but every song on Life's Rich Pageant I thought was killer.
Yeah. Yeah. They have some albums like that where there are no skippers at all.
Yeah. Dude, I love Abel Ferrara. Let me recommend another movie called The Blackout, which I think is on Tubi right now.
Oh, okay.
You ever see that one?
I don't know if I have. That's not the one with Vincent Gallo, is it? No, that's The Funeral.
Yeah, no, The Blackout. It's got Matthew Modine, Beatrice Dahl, and like all those other weirdos that are in all of his other movies. You know what I mean? You know how there's that Puerto Rican dude who's in it, who's in like every Abel Ferrara film, and then there's like another guy who plays always plays a drug dealer, like he's in it, like all these same dudes. Oh, and Dennis Hopper's in the Blackout too.
Oh, nice.
You know what? It's enough of a horror adjacent film that we should cover that one.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, it's on Tubi right now. For a really long time, it was hard to find that film. I actually have it on DVD, and it's probably like one of his most intense movies. It's obviously autobiographical too, because it's about like a famous guy's, drug fueled descent, and like there's like the blackout refers to a period of time that he doesn't remember, and there's something horrible happened during that period of time, which is like manifesting him. It's like this like trauma is like molding his life, and he cannot figure out what happened during that period of time. That he's like, there's all these like this footage. He's in therapy. They're trying to, and then it all comes out at the end, man. And it's really, really intense.
Yeah, he doesn't make movies that aren't intense, it seems.
This is true.
As as much as I like his Bad Lieutenant, I gotta say, man, I think I like the remake from Werner Herzog a little more.
That has grown on me quite a bit, actually, dude. Because like I remember when it came out, like what 2008 or something like that.
Yeah, something like
I
that.
was like, "What the fuck, man? Like, what? This never needed to be made." But it kind of aged well, and I think Randy and I talked about that on a was it on Everything Went Black, maybe?
Yeah, I think I remember listening to that
Yeah,
episode, really, really enjoying it. Made me rewatch it. And
yeah.
I was like, man, this movie is so great. The tone is so bizarre. Like only Werner Herzog could pull this off and make it watchable.
So I like back it. I initially, like I said, I remember watching it and just being totally disgusted by it. But then, like as time went on, I found myself revisiting it, and now it's definitely a movie that I recommend to people for sure.
An insane Nicolas Cage performance, to say the least.
Brandon and I talk about it because I'm gonna be on Horror Wolf. We're doing like a Nicolas Cage like appreciation episode, and that's something that came up on that episode too.
Oh, nice. I can't wait to listen to that.
Yeah. Infinity Pool, very special movie for me because it was during this like period of my life where like I was alone all the time and I thought I was doing really good, but in retrospect, I was like standing on the edge of the abyss the entire time. So
Yeah.
that was one of those films, one of my Friday night, you know, no one in the movie theater by myself hanging out films. So yeah, it was a very interesting period of my life.
Yeah, great movie. I love Infinity Pool. Also has kind of a connection to the movie we're going to talk about, Mia Goth.
It does. It actually, it does. One of Mia Goth's most unhinged performances. And
Yeah.
cheers about Lovecraft and Thomas Ligotti. Shadow of Innsmouth's great. Teatro Grotesco is an excellent place to start with Ligotti. And I always get excited when I hear about people getting into that.
Yeah, me too. Especially when you first discover Legati, you know right away if it's for you or not. You know, you're either hooked right away and obsessed, or you go, yeah, not for me.
Exactly. Well, thanks a lot, everyone. Definitely hit us up on that number, 908-913-0782, and we welcome all callers. And that brings us to this week's feature film, Maxxxine, the third chapter in Ty West's trilogy.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is pretty much a brand new movie, man. It was June 24th, 2024, at the TCL Chinese theaters when it debuted, released domestically July 5th, 2024, 104 minutes, written and directed by Ty West. So yeah.
Yeah. Prolific. He's been very, very busy guy lately.
There's a pretty you know pretty decent cast in this, man. Of course, we got Mia Goth returning as Maxine Miller, aka Maxine Minx.
Mm.
We've got Bobby Cannavale as
He's great. I love him.
Detective Torres. The great Giancarlo Esposito as Teddy Knight, Esquire, her agent. The great Kevin Bacon as Johnny Labatt, a PI, who is probably
Yes.
from like I imagine he's from New Orleans with a name like Johnny Labatt.
Great name.
Yeah. Let's see who else we got in here that's worth noting here. Larry Fessenden plays a security guard in this.
Yes, he does.
So yeah, it's like it's a fun cast.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They're having a great time making this, and it shows.
Bacon is totally chewing the scenery in this movie, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it works. It totally works, man. Like he's doing something that's almost like a Looney Tune car. You know what I mean? Like, but he was my favorite part of this movie.
Yeah. This movie is new. Okay. And I'm sure some of you guys have seen this and some of you guys haven't. So we're gonna try to like not we're gonna try to like talk more about the vibe of the film maybe than like going beat for beat because I don't want to ruin it for everybody.
Right. Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you. Okay, so the trilogy is complete. What did you think about the trilogy going in? Were you excited for this? Did you have expectations?
Yeah. I was very excited. I love the first two movies. I think Pearl I thought was like the Gone with the Wind of New Millennium horror, in my opinion. It was seriously, I thought I have nothing but great things to say about that movie. And all the first two entries into the trilogy were very different, The third one is yet again very different. Each film stands as its own sort of thing. But there's the connection of the character Maxxine.
Yeah, although she is not in Pearl, but the actress is. Mia Goth plays Pearl in
Right.
X and in Pearl, and I guess in this, but Pearl does sort of make some flashback appearances.
Yeah, yeah, it's like that's what I mean. There's like a universe
Yeah,
a world that they're working in. So I dug it. I think it's great. And the the thing that really hit me about this one is also each film has its own has a different style. Like for the first one, X, because I remember it came out around the same time as that horrible Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake
yes, it
or
did.
sequel came out. And
Hmm.
I think even during the episode, the commentary we had was that this should have been the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel or whatever you want to call it, because it
Yes.
had that Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe to it. You know, the second one, Pearl, had this sort of like I said, almost like a giant East of Eden sort of vibe to it, but a horror film.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if anyone else has mentioned that, but to me, it felt like a James Dean movie, like with but a horror film. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I completely get what they were trying to go for with this. I was almost surprised because I rewatched it before doing this, and I was like, yeah, this movie would have worked really well in black and white.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It had that sort of like epic, like old school, like Technicolor, like movie vibe to it. And Maxine, we're in the 80s now, straight up giallo European horror sleaze. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah.
Straight up. You even got a guy with black gloves on in this and a knife. So yeah, it's the whole giallo Italian 80s sleaze sort of trip going on. Even though giallos really were more of a 70s thing, but the feel of the film, maybe in the United States, like the American giallo like sort of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I even thought of subtle references to Body Double in the
Yep.
club scene.
Body
Uh,
double, dress to kill, like that sort of stuff.
yeah, yeah. It's such a loving tribute to the '80s and that era of filmmaking without being overly nostalgic. I like the little cues it gives you. Like listening to Casey Kasem on the radio. And one guy's reading Fangoria magazine. You see someone drinking a new Coke, but it doesn't shove your nose in that. It's not trying to be retro. It is effortlessly retro. It recaptures that period very, very well.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not nostalgic at all. But it's just a film that you feel like you're watching a film from the 80s, which I think was cool.
Yeah, it made LA look really, really sleazy. Like it kind of reminded me of the first like 15 or 10 minutes of The Howling,
Yes,
where
yes.
yeah, where like LA kind of looks like fucking it could be like Times Square, New York in the 70s or 80s.
Real quick about The Howling, man. Like there's almost like two different movies crammed into that. And
Yeah.
the movie that first 15 minutes that you were talking about, I wish they would have made that movie,
Yeah.
because that one I felt was way more compelling than the entirety of the film, really. Like just that first grimy LA sleaze part I thought was way, way cooler than where the movie went afterwards.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like I would rather have seen that as the entirety of the movie than I mean, I like The Howling, don't get me wrong, but I was like, as a kid, I was like, yeah, this would have been like awesome if it would stay just in the sleazy like peep show world.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting movie. Maybe someday when The Howling gets remade, they'll go that direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I immediately thought of that watching this.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, so it's 1985, it's LA. The Richard Ramirez murders are happening. So that's sort of the backdrop of this film, you know.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about that. And I think some people were very upset that they use the Night Stalker as sort of a red herring in this. I thought personally it added some color to the movie. Like it's not about that, but they acknowledged that that was happening at the time. It's more of a background thing. I think people thought that's what it was going to be about.
Well, what I liked about having the Night Stalker in there is that you really got this sense of like danger. It added to the sense of danger of just living in that urban environment, like similar to like in Taxi Driver, for example. You watch Taxi Driver and you think you imagine New York City in the 70s being a place where like if you are on the streets, it's only a matter of time before somebody tries to victimize you. You know what I mean? Either you get killed or raped or beat up or robbed or something like that. And
Yeah.
having the Richard Ramirez Night Stalker murders adding to this whole thing is like it just ups the ante of like menace, you know, in the film.
Yes, yes, I completely agree. I really liked that it didn't really end up being about the Night Stalker at all, but I thought it was a cool addition to the film. And like there's a scene where Maxine is approached by someone in an alley, and it gives her a little extra motivation to do what she does.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. You know, and it's what's interesting too is like Maxine is like the anti-hero in this film.
Yeah, yeah, of the whole series, really.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You know, I mean, obviously, she's you know, has murdered. She does murder. Um, but she is oftentimes in this like darkly heroic role, which I find really interesting. And you're kind of rooting for her too, because we learn also that Maxine has found infamy working in hardcore porn.
Yeah,
And yeah, so she's like, and probably you get the feeling that she's might be in like the tail end of her career doing that sort of stuff.
yeah, she's 33. She's been doing it for a little while, and she wants out of it. Like, yeah, the movie has this like, sleazy, porny sort of a feel to it, but it's not about like the porn business at all. Like, it's just again, it's sort of background color to the movie.
Yeah, and hold on a second. We got a cat here that just
Oh,
entered the office here.
yeah, my cats always bother me when I do this.
Uh, there's a whole drama going on between the two Lokis. Like we got two cats here named Loki. My
Oh my
cat
God.
Loki, and then there's another cat named Loki, and they're like they're each other's nemesis right now. So
That's
yeah,
amazing. Two cats named Loki.
yeah. So, but
Um,
yeah. So yeah, we got that drama going on at the same time. Similar to the Richard Ramirez murders going on. We got the Loki murders here.
well, you mentioned Maxine is a murderer. I wanted to ask, like, because there's some things that happen in this movie that I had like maybe like a slight mixed feelings about. Maxine, like, she's not exactly a murderer. Like, if you go back to the events of X, she's not ruthlessly cold bloodedly killing these people. This is about survival. And
Yeah. Okay. What
and
I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry, finish what you're saying. I'm
no,
sorry.
no, no, it's okay. It's all about survival for her and furthering her. Like, she won't let anything as silly as all of her friends getting slaughtered stop her from becoming a star. Um, and in this movie, it almost feels like there is a ruthlessness to her, like a cold-blooded streak to her. It isn't. She might think it's about advancing her career at any cost, but she crosses the line a few times into like just cold-blooded killer in this, which I had mixed feelings about. It was like the movie just kind of doesn't really focus on that too much. It's just sort of a thing that happens, and then it's not really mentioned again.
Yeah, okay. So my take on this whole thing is like Maxine is like obviously has some sort of psychopathic sociopathic, tendencies here. So she doesn't see the more morality in the stuff that she's doing. You know what I mean? Like all right, look, straight up, she's a porn star, right? She doesn't see anything wrong with that at all. Like the reason why she wants to get out of it is because she wants to have more fame. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's I mean, hey, porn's not my cup of tea necessarily, but some people might look down on that, especially back then, but to her it was a means to an end. The killing is a means to an end. She is very much like amoral about taking life, so that's like, and a lot of the stuff that she's done is something worth investigation by the police, which we learn later on, is something that can be held over her as like criminal activity,
Right.
but she's comfortable in that world because she has this like razor sharp focus on succeeding and becoming famous and all that sort of stuff.
Right. Yeah. The movie seems to like the central idea seems to be like drawing parallels between Maxxine and Pearl. And I really like the intro to this movie, that this old video from like the 50s of her singing and dancing while her father kind of cues her from behind the camera. And I looked it up. The dance young Maxxine does at the very beginning of this movie is the same routine as what Pearl does at the end of Pearl when she's auditioning for that role. It's the same dance. I liked that. That was a nice touch.
Yeah, and yeah. So there's like there's a world building aspect to this thing, which is really cool, and everything's connected, and it there's a logic to everything that happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Maxxine, she auditions for a mainstream horror film.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is like you see her act, man. Like you see, I mean, this is more like a Mia Goth like thing now. It's like you see her play, you see her playing Maxxine, and then she plays Maxxine playing another role, which I always find that interesting when actors can do that stuff.
Yeah, totally. She does this little like monologue. She has it memorized. She doesn't need her lines. She doesn't need to read them. And I love how that scene ends. She just gives it her all, and then someone's like, "Can we see your tits?" Yeah, and then it goes into the opening credits, which man, I love these. You got ZZ Top blaring over the background, and it shows all these clips. Like it talking about the Night Stalker and Satanic Panic, which was very much a thing in 1985.
Yeah, definitely. I remember that, being a little bit older than you guys, but yeah, that was like definitely a thing. Satanic Panic.
Oh,
Yeah, and Ramirez too, being like the poster boy for that, because was like a guy who fancied himself a satanic murderer.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought it was just a really cool way to submerge you into this movie, the era, and give you an idea of what you were about to see. All while ZZ Top is playing.
Dude, and the other thing too is like that era of ZZ Top, like that the Eliminator, that record.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like any other ZZ Top album. You know what I mean? It's like, the earlier ZZ Top stuff had like this organic, like blues rock, like vibe to it, but then like Eliminator comes out and everything sounds so sterile and just like, like it sounds like a drum machine on that record. The guitars are like super, super compressed, like everything in all the guitar tones in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it's just like this, and the songs don't sound like any other ZZ Top songs,
Yeah, no, they don't. Yeah, like if you go back and like, I remember being a kid and hearing ZZ Top and then hearing like their old stuff on the radio and not believing it was the same band.
Actually, that record has like a special place in my heart, man. It's like, I don't know if it's good or bad or what but there's something about that album, Eliminator, that just fucking hits with me. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the sterility of the whole thing. I don't know.
I think it was just a weird time for music. Like you had like these huge bands kind of incorporating more modern type sounds. Like you had, Van Halen 1984 came out, a little bit before that, and it's very 80s sounding. The Police with Synchronicity. Like a lot of these big bands who, could have been past their prime had their biggest hits, their biggest records right around then.
Actually, I'm gonna bring this up, and some people might disagree with me, but like Whitesnake was one of those bands too, because I think Whitesnake's self-titled record came out in the '80s, and I remember listening to that because I like Whitesnake because they had records before that from the '70s that were like more like hard rock, like very like blues rocky kind of vibe to it, and then the self-titled one came out like with a Tawny Katane like video.
Yeah.
And that was like, it's almost like they wanted to just discount the records before and just rebrand themselves as like an 80s, hair metal band, which they
Yeah.
successfully did because that was like probably the biggest record of their career.
Yeah. Yeah. You're probably right. Yeah. Um,
So yeah, we got Maxxxine who's also trying to rebrand herself too. She's like the dark years of porn, she's 33 and now she wants to be successful. You know what I'm saying? And it's
right.
like successful in a real commercial way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not sure her business plan makes a ton of sense, but whatever. Transitioning from hardcore porn to mainstream films, I think it's always been a very difficult path, and I don't know that many porn stars have been successful in that.
Well, Tracy Lords,
Yeah, yeah.
Tracy Lords went from doing illegal hardcore porn to
Yeah,
becoming, she was in Blade, she was in some John Waters movies. Like, she's like became like a legit actress in actual Hollywood.
yeah. Well, now I guess someone who's on that show Euphoria has a so OnlyFans sort of background. I don't know. I've never seen Euphoria. Not familiar with it, but I remember reading an article saying that just a year before being on that show, she was just straight up doing porn. So it is possible, but back then it was a tough road. And in this, she wants to be in a horror sequel. They're filming The Puritan 2, and I don't know a lot of horror sequels that really launched people into superstardom, especially if they were doing porn before.
But
But
also that
no,
might have been like an entry point though, too. You know what I mean? It's like, because you think the sequels are like pretty much across the board, right? The sequels are always the diminishing return.
right,
There's always like,
right.
that's when like the sort of plot gets lost somewhere along, especially, like Halloween and Friday the 13th and all that sort of stuff, Nightmare on Elm Street. The first one's always great. The second one's like debatable. And then by the time you get to three, all bets are off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty much. And we meet a really one of the more interesting characters in the movie at this casting, the director Elizabeth. Um,
Yes.
I really like that. Like they're not trying to make this like some sleazy production that's low budget, all about just making money. Elizabeth really cares about her film, and she's acts as sort of a mentor to Maxxxine. She sees something in her that reminds her of herself. Like she's very, very, very driven and will succeed at all costs. Which is sort of like Maxine's mantra. I fucking wrote it down, but I can't find it. I will not accept the life I don't deserve. And Elizabeth is sort of like the embodiment of that.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's like, I don't know how realistic that was, especially in the '80s, about having like a director making a sequel, trying to, put a vision out there, but I think it's a cool idea though for this film for sure.
Yeah, I kind of wish that movie actually existed. It looked good.
Yeah, dude, it's like that movie, and also in Censor, the movies that they're discussing in that movie
Yes.
Censor. I wish those movies existed too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, both those movies have a lot in common because, in a way, Maxine is really about, or this whole trilogy is really just about celebrating filmmaking.
Actually, you're right, 100% right about that for sure.
Yeah, and loving like recreation of the eras that the movies take place in. I mean, this one really has a lot of that. I mean, you have the Bates Motel pops up in this movie.
Yep, that's right. Yep, definitely.
Which is, I think, one of the great set pieces of this movie. You have a chase that happens on a Hollywood lot, and they go through all these different sets, and I love that. I love there's a scene where Maxxine is getting her head casted for a prop, and it's one of the best scenes in the movie. She's putting on that makeup, and she has to sit there with all that shit all over her face for like 10 minutes, and she has like a complete freak out. And and again, it's maybe commenting on Mia Goth and all that, the process she had to go through for playing Pearl. She's under a ton of makeup in X for that.
Totally.
And those are some of my favorite scenes in the movie, and in this movie are when they're really kind of like commenting on other movies.
The gore in this movie is actually pretty decent too. There's some good gore gags in this film.
Yeah, I did like that's where like the giallo aspect kind of comes in. I thought the blood was like really kind of bright and vibrant, like something you see in like an 80s Argento flick.
Yep.
I love that. And there's a kill that takes place in like a sleazy video store, and it's lit like a Argento flick, and you have a black gloved killer. Man, I love that stuff.
And then Johnny Labatt crawls out from under a rock to kind of ruin the party for Maxxine.
Yeah, he's like you said, this like real sleazy PI. Almost feels like he's in a completely different movie, and he's giving a really really insane performance that shouldn't work, but man, it works perfectly.
You can tell Kevin Bacon's having a great time playing Johnny Labatt.
Oh my God. I could watch a whole series about that character, man. Like easily by far my favorite part of the movie. He's such a sleazy piece of shit.
Yeah. The only actor who could have did equally as good a job as maybe Willem Dafoe, possibly.
Yeah. I kept thinking about I don't know if you've seen I don't think I know if you've seen The Righteous Gemstones, but the performance that Walton Goggins gives in that kind of reminds me of what Kevin Bacon is doing in this.
Righteous Gemstones is like one of my favorite things, man. I love that, and Eastbound and Down are like awesome, hands down.
Yeah, Uncle Baby Billy is one of the greatest fucking creations ever. And I feel Kevin Bacon is going like a similar route with this very cartoony performance, but it works, man. Every line he says, like I was cracking up at. And even in the chase scene when he's chasing Maxxine, the way he's running is like, again, something you'd see like I don't know, like Sylvester the cat chasing Tweety Bird. Like it was very cartoonish and broad, but man, pitch perfect. If there's a horror Oscars, Kevin Bacon deserves Best Supporting Actor.
Cool. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we also have the two cops, Bobby Cannavale as Detective Torres, and his partner. What was her name?
Michelle Moynihan.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Michelle Moynihan. Detective Williams. Yeah, Michelle. How can I forget her? I'll never forget. I'll probably never forget Michelle Moynihan.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's in this movie as Detective Williams, and that's Bobby Cannavale's partner, Torres.
Yeah, Bobby Cannavale's character was like a wannabe actor turned cop, and there are no like small, like there's a lot of small parts, but everyone plays them like they're the star of the movie. Like, you could focus on any one character and make an entire film about them. Every single character, like even the girl who applies Maxxine's makeup, like seems to be doing something interesting with their performance, and you want to know more about them. And these two cops, I mean, you could do this whole movie through their point of view, and I think it would be just as great.
Yeah, because he's one of these guys that definitely exists in LA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like he's a cop, but he really went to move to LA to become an actor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And somehow like became a cop. Like you wonder like what led him down that road. And he's always like hamming it up. Like he thinks he knows he's in a movie. And he's hamming it up every time he talks to Maxxxine. He's giving this like fucking like hard boiled detective performance.
Yeah, because she's always commenting about like how I think he went a little hard on that. Like she's always
Yeah,
commenting about how his like, weren't you a little bit much, this time around? It's like,
yeah, yeah,
you
exactly.
think so? You think I was a little too hard, a little too much?
Yeah, he becomes this completely different guy when Maxxxine goes. Like, okay, end scene. Oh, how did I do? I love that, man. All these like little, even the guy who plays her Maxine's like friend, who runs the video store downstairs. Not in the movie very much, but it's an interesting character and it's a good performance.
And Giancarlo Esposito as her
Oh man,
her manager is damn. Don't you wish we both had managers like him?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I kept wondering like if that was a red herring, like if he was gonna be more tangled up in the story than he was. But no, he's just an agent that really cares about Maxxxine. He's sleazy, but he loves his clients.
Yeah,
And
he's a guy you want on your side for sure.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I feel like he's hitting the same tone as Kevin Bacon is in this. Like those guys are on the same page as far as like what they were bringing to the movie. Um, every scene that he's in, he's just again he's hamming it up. But man, it is so good. Like I'll go to jail for you, like, and you feel like he really means it.
He's always good, man. He's
Yeah,
always awesome in every role I've seen him play, and he's been in a ton of stuff. Isn't he in like a Star Wars thing too?
I think he is actually. Yeah, I don't know which was the Mandalorian
I
because
don't know. I haven't watched any of the Star Wars stuff.
you're not missing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And dude, like, after I watched this, I was turned on the YouTube and he's in a Fiat commercial with Spike Lee.
Dude.
And I'm like, I love this. He's doing a fucking car commercial and I with Spike Lee and he's, bringing it. He's fucking great in everything he does.
Oh, actually, he was in a Spike Lee film. I think wasn't he in like Do the Right Thing or something like that?
Yeah, he was. He's sort of like the guy who sparks the entire events that unfold in that movie. It's the first time I remember seeing him. I mean, obviously he was in stuff before that, but that's when
Yeah.
he became really. He's in Maximum Overdrive.
That I don't remember. He was in Maximum Overdrive. Okay.
Yeah, he's the dude who goes to play like the pinball machine, and the pinball machine somehow kills him. um,
All right. Yeah.
Spoiler for Maximum Overdrive, I guess. Um, yeah, but he's great. He was great in Do the Right Thing. He's great in Breaking Bad. He's easily the best part of that, and he's great in this. And again, like very different performances. You can go from deadly serious to sort of this like schlocky over the top thing he's doing in this, and it totally works.
Now within the three of these films, where as far as like enjoyability, where does this fall for you?
Um, yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot, and
Yeah.
mostly because of the reaction this movie has gotten. I don't know if I followed the discourse, but I remember when this movie was coming out, and the major word was like it's a huge disappointment. And I kind of went into this with lowered expectations. And to tell you the truth, man, when it was done and over, it was like, I don't get it. I love this.
Yeah.
Um, I really I mean, X is still my favorite of the three, but I would give Maxxine a very, very close second. Pearl is more like of the I can see where it fits in, but it doesn't fit in as well with these two. This is a direct sequel to X, or Pearl is takes a side turn a little bit. Not saying Pearl's a bad movie; it's a good movie, but I enjoyed it more than Pearl.
I think I'm on the same page with you. X is number one, Maxine's number two, and Pearl's number three. Because Pearl is almost more like an exposition. You know what I mean? Pearl
Yeah,
is like more like an essay for the world that this whole drama takes place in. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm not sure what people were expecting out of this, but it's pretty much what I thought it was going to be: a celebration of the 80s, a loving ode to 80s horror filmmaking, much like X was like a love letter to 70s horror. That's what this is. And I think it really executed its goal fairly well. I mean, there's some stuff that doesn't 100% work. Um, a lot of people have problems with the third act. It is ridiculous, but I think it is supposed to be ridiculous. I mean, the tone of these movies are a little silly. Like you could almost say they're comedies in a way. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, you know, that's an interesting take on it because yeah, they're completely unrealistic. You know, there's not,
Yeah,
you know, and they're not about like dread or anything like that, but they are
right.
broad in a lot of ways. Broad strokes. They're done in very broad strokes, and there is a comedic, like a darkly humorous element to all three of these films.
Yeah, like X ends like, all of her friends were killed and she's driving and she pulls out a baggie of Coke and starts doing bumps at the end. Like that's funny. That's almost like saying, hey, like this isn't some this isn't Martyrs,
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it's not Martyrs for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Ty West really did something cool with these three films coming out almost back to back to back. 5 years, three movies. That's pretty quick. He could do two, three more of these, and I would be completely on board because I don't feel like Maxxine's story is finished. I think there's more there in that world, and maybe even Pearl's story too. You can get like another prequel, and I
Yeah.
don't
So
think this.
do you think he's going to make more of these?
He did talk about an idea for a fourth one. I don't know if the reaction to this maybe has squashed that. I mean, this movie wasn't like a bomb, and it wasn't like torn apart by critics, but it wasn't as enthusiastically received as the two before it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think maybe time will be very kind to Maxine. I think in a few years, people will maybe go back and revisit it, have different expectations than they rewatch it. And I think it will be reevaluated and seen as a really great horror movie. That's what I hope anyway. Uh,
I'm looking forward to getting all three of these in like some kind of box set or something like that.
yeah, totally. And just watching them all three together and noticing like the different parallels. There's some cool visual cues in Pearl that harken back to X. There wasn't as much of that in this, but I really like all that stuff. I like the subtle references to Pearl, the parallels between the two characters. Hey, there's a lot going on in Maxine, and I guess it can be seen as like too much, too over the top, but I think it really rode that line really well.
Now you sent me an article about
Yeah.
about Mia Goth that in the wake of all this stuff. So there is some controversy here.
Yeah, another horror movie with controversy surrounding its production. Earlier this year, Late Night with the Devil had sort of an AI controversy, which I don't know what that was really all about. I didn't follow that. But yeah, Maxine, there's an extra on the set of the film, James Hunter. Yeah, interesting character this guy is. Claims he was playing he was laying on the ground. I guess he was supposed to be a body or something. I'm not sure about that. And during a take, he claims Mia Goth came by and kicked him so hard that he suffers from severe trauma and migraines now. And when confronted about this, Mia Goth said, "Don't be a fucking baby. Get the fuck off my set." Wow. um, she, along with the A24 and I believe Ty West, are now being sued for this incident. But the article I sent you from Rolling Stone paints this guy in a very different light than he was being portrayed. Did you hear anything about? You didn't hear anything about this before I
No, I
sent it to you?
actually did. I forgot what podcast I was listening to. Um, and they were like, all right, now I'm not going to name the podcast. It's just that it's a podcast that I really like and respect.
Mm,
However, they're a little gentle when it comes to these sorts of things. Like they're
yeah,
like, very much quick. They're a podcast that's probably quick to condemn somebody for doing something like this
right.
without knowing the whole story. Okay.
Yeah.
So initially they were like, oh my God, Mia Goth's a monster. She like head kicked some guy on this, like knocked this guy out or something like that through, And I'm like, was there like some kind of physical altercation and she like question mark kicked some guy in the head and like, or, gave him a concussion or something like that. That's
Yeah.
what I thought, I thought, oh, Jesus, she like kicked some dude in the head. Like, but after reading the other article, the Rolling Stone one, I
Yeah.
feel like it happened during the filming
Yeah. It
of
happened
this
during a
thing,
take. Yeah.
during a take when she was running. And anyone out there who's never been on a film set, it's like they'll do a scene will be done like 20 or 30 times at all different angles, and you know even stuff like that. Like they'll shoot it from 5 different angles and
Yeah. For like a
60
2 second
times.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah. So you do these things over and over and over and over again. And like this time around, one of the takes, she kicked him in the head. Okay.
Yeah.
Accident. Okay. Was her response insensitive? Yeah. Is it worth being sued over? I don't think so. Especially with this guy's background. It's like he was involved in some kind of rent scam, or he's like
Allegedly.
allegedly involved in some sort of rent scam, and there's like alleged sort of criminal activity. He's like allegedly a low level like criminal fraudster sort of dude.
Yeah. It says some questionable things on Twitter, to say the least. Could this have
Yeah.
happened? Yeah, this absolutely could have happened. Did it happen the way he's saying it? I don't know. I wasn't there. I mean, you can have the sketchiest background in the world and tell the truth about something. I don't know. But Mia Goth has been very quiet about this. I don't know if she's commented on it. I haven't seen anything, but it does seem like a campaign to ruin someone's career. But
Yeah.
I think this is going to end up being a non-controversy in the end. I think it'll go away.
People will forget about it, I think, and yeah, I think that's probably why she's staying quiet about it, because she's just like, you know what, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't say these things. I don't know. Like, it's probably best to let the news cycle run its course and have people forget about it. And maybe this guy really all he wanted was a settlement or something, just to, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, I've been on a few sets before. It can be tense, argumentative. Things happen.
A thing like that,
Yeah. Who knows? Not calling this guy a liar, but a Rolling Stone article definitely painted him in a different light. That other when this article first came out, yeah, like you said, Mia Goth is a monster. Blah blah blah. But I don't know. I don't know. I think people should read into this and come to their own conclusions. What was weird for me, it was like watching the movie. I was like, I don't know what scene that could have happened, and maybe it was cut from the
Dude,
think
that's the other thing. It might even be in the film. Like,
yeah,
I think I told you, like, maybe 10 years ago, I was I'm not going to say I was working in film, because that's definitely too generous, but it's like, I was doing sound on film sets. I actually was a background actor on a couple things. And it's like you film shit, and you got to remember, like, they'll, for like, say like a 90-minute feature, you'll film like hundreds of hours of footage,
yeah,
and yeah, a lot of that stuff those scenes, once they get edited, are just not part of they're just gone. Like they don't use it. So maybe this scene was something that got edited out and doesn't appear in the film,
yeah. Because I couldn't place. I mean, there was like that chase scene. I was like, oh, maybe it's during that, but it's really just two people. There's not a ton of extras laying, and certainly no one laying on the floor.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very yeah, you're right. Like they'll film all day for something that's on the screen for a second. You know, when I lived in Hollywood, they filmed Dexter in my apartment complex, and I watched them film that all the time. They'd be there all day. And then you'd watch the show and like, oh man, all that work for like a split second shot of someone knocking on the door, you know?
It's really crazy, dude, how films are made. You know,
Yeah, dude,
just it's insane.
when you watch something get made, you wonder, you see like it's a miracle when something gets edited together and it makes sense. It's so there's so much going on behind the camera. There's so many people involved. You know, I watched actors on Dexter. You know, he's like, okay, why are we here? What am I holding in my hand? You know,
Yeah.
there's so many like things to think about. It can go easily go so wrong. So when something comes out well, it almost seems like a minor miracle.
Yeah, it's like the the editing. I have so much respect for editors because of just they're the
Yeah.
ones who take all this footage and make it, you know, there's like that scene of a guy drinking a cup of Coca-Cola or drinking the can of Coke or whatever. There was probably like 100 different takes of that from various angles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
an editor decided which one was the one, you know, and that just seems like the most insane sort of gig to have, you know?
Yeah, I can't even imagine the amount of stress and work that goes into editing. Films are really made in the editing.
Yeah,
Like that's where
100%
it
they
all
are.
comes together. Yeah, I mean, you look at a film like Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line, where he shot hours and hours and hours of stuff, and the movie started out with Adrian Brody as the lead. After the movie is edited, Adrian Brody is in the movie for 5 minutes and has one line.
It's
You know,
insane. Yeah, insane, man.
completely insane. Like what you can do with editing, and I'm sure, like you know, that was sort of a different thing. You know, Terrence Malick has a very different process than most filmmakers. But you know that can happen. The tone can change, the lead can change, the story can change. You know, we're seeing a lot of that with like these comic book movies that you know they shoot something and then it comes out and the actor is like, "Oh, this is not the movie I shot." It's very interesting to me the editing process. Like they are really the unsung hero of film.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, it's like, and also the other funny thing too is just like the back being a background actor, you know,
Oh
where
yeah,
like, you know, you're like not even like part of me thought also like, well, did Mia Goth and this guy have some sort of altercation or whatever? But straight up, unless you're in the scene, you are so far away from any of the principal actors when you're a background actor,
oh
you know,
yeah,
like they're like in their trailers and then you're in a fucking room with all like 100 other people, you know what I mean? Or like, or in some outdoor like setting, like, you know, bullpen kind of thing. Like you're not anywhere near the actual actors, you know,
yeah.
and even like, you know, like I was in a couple scenes that Ice-T was in, right? So it's like, there was like, it was CSI. It was a CSI show that I worked on.
Oh, I see. That's yeah,
Yeah.
SVU. Yeah,
SVU. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's like, yeah, oh great, Ice-T's in the room, but he was like, you know, 100 feet away from me though, and we never, you know, I was never even near that guy. You know what I'm trying to say?
yeah. You're not going to go up to him and talk about the
Yo,
new
what's
body
up?
count record.
Yeah, we're not gonna like hang out and
Yeah.
talk about like Slayer or anything. And another guy that was in that scene too, it's the dude who played. Do you ever see uh Office Space?
Oh yeah,
The guy who played the boss, who was like, yeah, I'm gonna
Gary
need you to
Cole.
come. That guy, he was
Yeah.
also in that too.
Oh wow.
He was in that scene. So there you go. Was he in the scene? Was he actually in that episode? I don't know, but he
Yeah.
acted in that scene that we shot. You
Right.
know,
Yeah. 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 I worked in catering in LA, and everyone on the staff was like, you know, 90% of them did background work, and they, you know, they tell me what it's like, and it's like you're on set 10 hours a day, you're working maybe an hour of that 10 hours, and yeah, you're not walking up to anyone, talking to anyone, you know, that'll get you fired right away. And yeah, the interaction between the actors and the background actors is very minimal. And if you do have like a scene like where they decide to give you a line of dialogue, your pay gets bumped up more. It's really interesting to talk to these people and to see like the, you know, that whole aspect of it. I found it fascinating.
I literally did it for money. Like I didn't give a fuck about being an actor or like, or like
Yeah,
having a career. Like it was
yeah,
during that period of my life where I was just like freelancing all the time and on the road a lot. And I was like, I like need money. This seems like an easy way to make, whatever, $100 or something. You know what I mean?
yeah. It's almost like doing Uber or DoorDash or something like that, where like you need a couple extra, some extra money here and there. You're like, I'm sure some actors started in background and stuff like that, but it's very hard to advance your career through that. From what I understand, it's just something for money.
And then like I was in a couple of like independent films that never got released either. Like as far as like starting out as a sound guy,
Oh
where like I would
wow.
just be doing the sound. And then the dude was like the guy who was like directing it needed like some rough looking like guy to play a doorman in like a club scene. And the guy that the actor didn't show up or whatever like that. And he was like, Mike, you're like a rough looking dude. Like what, like show so and so how to do sound during this scene. I need you to be in this scene. I'm like, all right, cool. It's like I'll
Yeah,
give you like whatever, extra money for it. And I was like, oh, cool. I get another $50 or whatever on top of whatever I was making that day.
yeah.
But yeah, the film got made, got edited. They had like a screening like at some party, type setting in like Brooklyn, and never was picked up or released or anything like that.
And there's so many movies like that floating around. I know a few people who were involved in productions like that. You put all your effort into something, and you got hundreds of people working on it, and no one's ever going to see it.
Like one of the sketchiest things too in the background thing, like there was actually like a company that would, you had to take headshots with and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they were like I have shirtless photographs too, like that were part of their thing too, which
Really?
was it was like they wanted to take like shirtless pictures of me too, which I thought was hysterical. And it's like definitely one of the sketchiest like experiences.
You sure this was a legit movie you were on,
Yeah,
right? Let's see what you look like without your pants on. Come on. Give
it
you
was like
$50.
the pants were definitely on, but it was just really funny.
Learning a lot about you today, Mike.
I know,
Um,
right?
all this to say, movie making is hard. It's a miracle when something great comes out of it. um,
Yeah. Well,
and
anyway, dude,
yeah,
we got way off topic, but like,
yeah.
what do you what do you give this as a rating before we wrap it up here?
I give it 4.5.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. This is top 6 right now, but the way the year is going, who knows, man? It's a strong year. But I enjoyed this movie so much. I'm a little confused about the backlash it sort of got. I thought it was fit really well with the other two movies. It's a little more absurd and goes over the top, but it worked in this 4.5.
I also give it a 4.5. It was definitely a strong film. Like it's one in it will make a high appearance in my top 6 when we do our episode at the end of the year, no doubt, man. And so yeah, 4.5.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, fun one that I think will be seen in a different light in a few years. At least I hope.
Hell yeah.
And here's hoping he does. Ty West does another one of these, because I could watch these all day. Love them.
Yeah, me too, man. And I actually feel just an invigorated Ty West making movies in general is cool. So yeah, even if
Yeah,
it's just a different type of film too, I still look forward to seeing more work from him.
he rarely misses. Like he has a couple films in his filmography that that was okay, but nothing that's a flat out disaster. He's a very interesting filmmaker, and I look forward to anything he does.
Right on. Thanks for listening, everyone. And we will be in touch with you guys. Take care now.
Bye now.